Someone is hurting right now. Maybe it's the person sitting next to you. Maybe it's someone you haven't spoken to in months. Maybe, if you're being honest with yourself, it's you. And the question isn't whether people around you are hurting. They are. The question is what you do when you find out. Because here's where most people get it completely wrong. When someone comes to you in pain, your first instinct is to fix it, to offer a solution, to say the right thing, to make the discomfort go away theirs. Yes, but also your own. You hand them advice like it's medicine. You redirect the conversation toward hope. You tell them it's going to be okay. And in doing that, you lose them completely. Not because you're cruel, but because you don't understand what a hurting person actually needs from you. And few people ever stop long enough to figure it out. Hailunge tut ki. Because what I'm about to tell you runs against everything you've been taught about being a good friend, a good partner, a good human being. The most powerful thing you can do for someone in pain is not to speak. It's not to comfort. It's not even to be strong for them. It's to let them feel seen. That's it. That's the whole secret. And yet almost no one does it. Think about the last time you were truly hurting, not mildly inconvenienced, not a little stressed, truly, deeply hurting. The kind of pain that sits in your chest when you wake up, the kind that follows you into the shower, into your car, into the spaces between conversations. Now think about who you told, and then think about what they said. There's a good chance they said something kind, something well-meaning, something like, stay strong or everything happens for a reason, or at least you have your health, in a microsecond, and there's a good chance you're honest that it made you feel more alone than before you opened your mouth. Because they were talking to your situation, not to you. Dale Carnegie understood something about human nature that most people spend their entire lives missing. He understood that the deepest craving of every human soul is not comfort. It's not advice. It's not even love in the way we typically think of it. It's the need to feel that someone else truly understands what you are going through. Not sympathizes, not pities, understands. There is an enormous difference between those two things. And that difference is the distance between a person who feels alone in their pain and a person who begins, slowly, to heal. I bit dione, but Carnegie believed that the inability to truly listen to another person's sufferings was one of the great failures of modern human relationships. We have perfected the art of responding. We have completely neglected the art of receiving. When someone tells you they are hurting, your mind immediately starts preparing a response. You start searching through your own experiences for something relatable. You start building a bridge from their pain to your own story. And the moment you do that, the moment you make their pain about your experience, you have abandoned them. You are still in the room, but you are no longer with them. And they feel it. Hurting people always feel it. There's a line that should stop you cold. Don't depend too much on anyone in this world, because even your own shadow leaves you when you are in darkness. Read that again, slowly. Your shadow, the thing that follows you everywhere, in every kind of light, disappears the moment true darkness falls. And so do most people, not because they are bad, not because they don't care, but because they simply don't know how to stand in the dark with someone else. They get uncomfortable. They want the pain to end. So they try to turn the lights on too quickly. They offer silver linings before the person has had a chance to grieve the storm. They hand out hope like it costs nothing, not realizing that to someone in real pain, premature hope can feel like dismissal. Like their suffering wasn't serious enough to sit with. Like you needed it to be over so you could feel better. This is what Carnegie warned against in the deepest sense. He knew that the instinct to fix is often more about the helper than the one being helped. We feel helpless in the face of someone else's pain, and helplessness is uncomfortable. So we act, we speak, we advise, we redirect, we do anything to feel useful again. But the hurting person doesn't need you to feel useful. They need you to be present. There is a profound difference between a person who listens and a person who waits to talk. A hurting person can tell the difference in seconds. They can feel it in the quality of your silence. They can see it in your eyes. They know whether you are truly receiving their words or simply processing them into your next response. And when they sense that you are waiting, that you are preparing, they stop. They close. They say, "I'm fine," and change the subject, not because they don't need help, but because they've already learned that opening up only leads to being handed advice they didn't ask for. Carnegie said it plainly: listening carefully to a person is the greatest compliment we can give them. Think about what that means. Not praise, not agreement, not even kindness. Listening. The act of making someone feel worth hearing is, Carnegie believed, among the most profound gifts one human being can offer another. And yet we are terrible at it. We live in a world that rewards quick thinking and fast answers. We are praised for having opinions and solutions. We have been trained from childhood to respond in school, in conversations, in arguments, in relationships. Silence feels like failure. Quiet feels like weakness. So we fill every pause with words, not realizing that in those pauses, in those quiet, uncomfortable spaces, healing is trying to happen. You have to learn to let the silence breathe. You have to learn to sit in discomfort long enough for the other person to feel safe. You have to learn that your presence-full, unhurried, undistracted is more powerful than anything you could possibly say. Eat I bit dionai. But Carnegie's entire philosophy about human connection rests on a single radical idea: that people don't primarily want to be understood by someone smarter than them. They want to be understood by someone who actually cares. Intelligence without empathy is noise. Advice without listening is arrogance. And good intentions without true presence, that's just loneliness dressed up in kindness. Here is what no one tells you about a hurting person. They are not looking for answers. They have already thought of the answers. They have already told themselves to stay strong, to look on the bright side, to remember that others have it worse. They don't need you to repeat what they've already failed to believe. They need you to make them feel like their pain matters, like it's real, like it deserves to exist, not to be solved or reframed or reduced, but simply to exist witnessed by another human being who chose, in that moment, to stay. That is how you respond to a hurting person. Not with the right words, with the right presence. And here is the twist that will change how you see every conversation you've had until now. The reason most people never learn how to truly be there for someone else is because they have never allowed anyone to truly be there for them. Before we go further, drop your city name in the comments right now. Tell me where in the world you're watching from. And if this is speaking to something real in your life, subscribe, because what comes next goes even deeper. And that truth that you cannot give what you have never received is where everything starts to unravel. Because most of us grew up in homes where pain was managed, not held. Where sadness was something to get over. Where the adult in the room said, "Stop crying," before asking what's wrong. Where strength meant silence, and vulnerability meant weakness. And the fastest way to make discomfort disappear was to pretend it wasn't there. So you learned. You learned to close up. Learned to say, "I'm fine," before anyone asked. You learned that your pain was an inconvenience to the people around you. And somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, you started doing the same thing to others. Not out of cruelty, out of habit. This is the inheritance most people carry without ever examining it. The reflex to fix. The discomfort with rawness. The desperate need to move a conversation away from pain and toward something more manageable. Bankon yenza dionai. Comb every time you rush to comfort someone, you might actually be rushing to comfort yourself. Think about it honestly. When a friend breaks down in front of you, what is the first thing that happens in your body? There's a tightening. A kind of internal alarm. Something in you wants the moment to resolve. And so you speak, not because you know what to say, but because silence feels unbearable. That is not compassion. That is escape dressed as kindness. And hurting people feel the difference immediately. Here's what that does to a person who is already in pain. They came to you carrying something heavy, They took the risk of letting you see it, and the moment they laid it down, you picked it up and handed it back in a different shape, tidier, more optimistic, easier to carry, and said, "Here, this is better." But it wasn't better. It was just more comfortable for you. So they take it back, they smile. They say, "You're right. Thank you." And they walk away, still carrying the full weight of it. Now also carrying the quiet knowledge that even you, someone they trusted, couldn't just sit with them. That knowledge is lonelier than the original pain. Carnegie wrote about this, not with cold academic language, but with the precision of someone who had spent decades watching human beings fail each other in exactly this way. He saw it in boardrooms and at kitchen tables, in marriages and in friendships, in the space between two people who loved each other, but could not figure out how to actually reach each other. He said something that should be framed on every wall of every home in the world. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. Read that slowly. Not by being interesting, by being interested. The shift is everything. Because most of us spend our lives trying to be impressive to have the right response, the wise perspective, the helpful solution. We perform understanding instead of practicing it. We perform empathy instead of feeling it. And the hurting person in front of us sees through the performance, even if they can't name what they're seeing. They just know something is off. They just know they are not quite being met. De la tu ha hom zaitban chung. Genuine interest is not a feeling. It is a discipline. It is the conscious decision to make another person's inner world more important than your own comfort. It is the choice, moment by moment, to stay curious instead of reactive, to ask instead of assume, to receive instead of redirect. And it is extraordinarily hard, because the human brain is not built for passive receiving. It is built for pattern recognition, for problem solving, for response. The moment someone tells you something painful, your brain is already 3 steps ahead, cataloging similar experiences, forming opinions, preparing solutions. You have to actively fight that instinct. You have to pull yourself back, deliberately, into the present moment, into this person, into this pain, into right now. That act of pulling back, that quiet, invisible effort is what Carnegie was pointing at his entire career. It's what he meant when he talked about genuine interest, not the warm feeling of caring about someone, but the hard, disciplined work of actually paying attention to them. Most people never do it. Not fully, not consistently. Here is where the tension deepens, because there's a particular kind of person who is the hardest to be present for, not the stranger, not the acquaintance, the person closest to you, your partner, your parent, your oldest friend. With a stranger, you can maintain presence. You have no history with them, no accumulated frustrations, no unspoken resentments. You can simply listen. But with the people you love most, the ones whose pain matters most, you bring everything, every old wound, every past argument, every time they didn't show up for you the way you needed. And all of that gets in the way. Bad konyenza, diunai kom that the people you love most are often the ones you listen to least. You think you know them. You've heard versions of this story before. You already have opinions about their choices, their patterns, their role in their own suffering, and so you half listen, filtering everything through your accumulated knowledge of who they are, and you miss who they are becoming, right in front of you, in this moment of pain. That's where relationships quietly die. Not in the dramatic moments, not in the fights or the betrayals, but in the hundreds of small moments when one person reached out and the other person was technically present, but not actually there. 2 men looked out from prison bars. One saw the mud, and the other saw the stars. Same bars, same cell, entirely different experience of reality. When someone is hurting, they are looking through bars. Their world has contracted. The future feels closed. The options feel narrow. And what they need more than advice, more than optimism, more than your carefully chosen words, is for someone to climb into that contracted world with them for a moment. Not to fix the bars, not to point at the stars before they're ready. Just to acknowledge the bars are real. Just to say, I see what you're looking at. I see why it feels impossible. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't look the way it looks. That moment of honest acknowledgement, of not flinching, not redirecting, not softening, is the moment trust is built. Not slowly, over time, immediately, in a single exchange. And it is rarer than you think. De la tu ha komzait ban chung, that validation is not agreement. When you acknowledge someone's pain, you are not saying they are right. You are not saying the situation is hopeless. You are not feeding despair. You are saying your experience is real, and it deserves to be witnessed. That is it, nothing more. And that simple act, the act of witnessing without judgment, can change the entire trajectory of a conversation, of a relationship, of a life. Carnegie knew this. He built an entire philosophy around it, not because he was soft or sentimental, but because he was pragmatic. He had seen, over and over again, that you cannot influence a person you have not first made to feel understood. You cannot help someone who doesn't trust you. And you cannot earn trust by offering solutions to a person who hasn't yet felt heard. The sequence matters. Presence first. Understanding second. Then and only then whatever else you have to offer. Most people reverse this completely. They arrive with answers before they've asked the right questions. They offer maps before they've learned the terrain. And they wonder why the person in pain doesn't seem grateful. Why they seem to close up instead of open. Why the help doesn't help. It's because the order was wrong. And here is where the tension reaches its first peak. Because there is someone in your life right now. Someone you care about. Someone who has been hurting for longer than they've let on. Someone who tried, once or twice, to open up to you, and something in the way you responded made them decide not to try again. You may not even remember the conversation. They remember every word. And what you don't yet know, what I haven't told you yet, is that the window to reach them may be narrower than you think. Because hurting people don't wait forever. They adapt. They build walls. They find ways to carry the weight alone. Because alone, at least, there is no disappointment. And once those walls go up once, a person decides that their pain is too much for the people around them. Something shifts inside them that is very, very difficult to undo. What shifts and how you reach someone, after it already has, is exactly what we need to talk about next. What shifts is this. They stop asking. Not loudly, not with an announcement. They simply stop. One day they are still reaching, still testing the water, still leaving small openings in conversations for you to walk through. And then one day they are not. The openings close, the tone changes. They become easier to be around, lighter, less complicated, and you think, good, they're doing better. They are not doing better. They have simply decided you cannot hold it. And here is the unbearable part. Here is the part that should keep you awake tonight. You probably have someone like this in your life right now. Someone who used to bring you their pain and no longer does. And you interpreted their silence as healing. It was not healing, it was resignation. There is a conversation that happens inside a hurting person when they reach this point. You never hear it out loud, but it goes something like this. I tried. I told them. I showed them what was happening inside me, and they changed the subject. Or they told me to look on the bright side. Or they said nothing and just looked uncomfortable. So I smiled and said I was fine, and they looked relieved. And that relief on their face, that small exhale of tension, told me everything I needed to know. That internal conversation, that conclusion, that quiet closing of a door. That is the moment you lost them. Not the fight, not the distance, not whatever came after. That moment, that specific exchange where your discomfort was more visible than your care, that is where it ended. Ban kachudung dionai kom. Can you sit with that? Because most people, when they hear this, immediately start defending themselves. But I didn't know. But I was going through something too. But I thought they were okay. And all of that may be true. But a hurting person does not experience your reasons. They experience your response. And your response, however, unintentional. However, human told them that their pain was more than you could carry with them. That is the first mini-climax, and it is not the twist yet. The twist is worse. Here is what Carnegie spent years trying to articulate what he arrived at after studying thousands of human interactions, after failing himself in conversations, after watching people destroy their closest relationships not through malice, but through the simple, devastating failure to truly listen. He realized something that turned his entire understanding upside down. The person who cannot be present for someone else's pain, who flinches, who redirects, who offers advice instead of acknowledgement, is not failing the other person because they don't care enough. They are failing because they are hurting too. And de la dio te doi tatka. The one who cannot sit with your pain cannot sit with their own. The one who rushes to fix you rushes to fix themselves. The one who needs your suffering to resolve quickly needs their own suffering to resolve quickly. They have never been allowed to fall apart without someone immediately trying to put them back together. So they do the only thing they know. They put you back together too, fast, efficiently, without ever asking if you were ready. They are not failing you from strength. They are failing you from their own unhealed wound. Carnegie said it this way, and hear this carefully. When dealing with people, remember, you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but creatures of emotion. Creatures of emotion. Every single one of us, including the one who hurt you, with their inadequate response, including the one who changed the subject, including the one who told you to stay strong, when all you needed was for someone to acknowledge that you were breaking. They were afraid, not of you, of what your pain reminded them of in themselves. This is where the story becomes something else entirely, because you came into this thinking about the hurting person, the one in pain, the one reaching out, the one being failed by the people around them. And now I am telling you that the person failing them is also a hurting person, also unheard, also carrying something they were never taught to put down. There is no villain in this story. There is only a long chain of people who were never truly witnessed, passing that absence forward, generation to generation, relationship to relationship, conversation to conversation. You are somewhere in that chain. We all are. And here is the second mini-climax, the one that cuts deepest. Think about the last time you failed to show up for someone in pain. Don't defend it. Don't explain it. Just feel it for a moment. There was a person in front of you, hurting, and something in you could not go there with them. Now ask yourself honestly, without judgment, what were you carrying in that moment that made their pain feel like too much? What were you not saying? What were you not allowing yourself to feel? Because Carnegie was right about something. Most people spend their whole lives avoiding. Inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. But here is what he meant at the deepest level. And this is what most people miss. The action he was pointing to is not external. It is not doing more, fixing more, achieving more. The most important action a human being can take is the internal one. The act of turning toward your own pain instead of away from it. The act of sitting with your own discomfort long enough to stop being afraid of it. Because only then, only after you have learned to be present with yourself, can you be truly present with someone else. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot offer stillness from a place of inner chaos. You cannot hold someone else's darkness if you are running from your own. And this is the moment where everything you thought you understood about the topic collapses and rebuilds itself into something truer. You did not come here just to learn how to respond to a hurting person. You came here because you are one. And the person you have been waiting for. The one who would finally sit with you, fully, without flinching, without redirecting, without needing your pain to end so they could feel comfortable again. That person has to start with you. You have to become that person for yourself first. But here is what I haven't told you yet. Here is the piece that makes everything else possible or impossible. There is one specific moment in every painful conversation, a single identifiable moment, a window of maybe 10 seconds. And what you do in those 10 seconds determines everything that follows, whether the person opens or closes, whether trust is built or broken, whether healing begins or gets postponed indefinitely. Most people walk through that moment every day without knowing it exists. And once I show you where it is, you will never be able to unseize it. That 10-second window exists in every painful conversation you have ever had. You have walked through it hundreds of times, and almost every time, without knowing it, you closed the door instead of opening it. Not because you were careless, because you were never shown what to look for. Now I'm going to show you. And once you see it, you carry it forever. The first thing you need to understand is that a hurting person tests before they trust. They don't announce their pain like a headline. They drop it quietly, like a stone into water. And they watch the ripples. They say something small, something that sounds almost casual. I've just been really tired lately. Things have been kind of hard. I don't know. I just feel stuck. That is not small talk. That is a test. They are watching your face. They are listening to the speed of your response. They are measuring whether you pause, whether you actually receive the weight of what they just said, or whether you bounce off it and keep moving. And you have approximately 10 seconds before they make their decision. 10 seconds of genuine stillness, of leaning in, of letting that small sentence land, or 10 seconds of reflexive reassurance that tells them everything they need to know. This is the first lesson. Eat I bit dionai silence is not emptiness. It is the most active thing you can offer someone in pain. When someone drops that stone into the water and you go quiet, not uncomfortable quiet, but present quiet, the kind that says, I heard you, and I'm not going anywhere, something shifts in them immediately. The guard comes down, just slightly. The door opens just enough. And in that opening, real conversation becomes possible. Carnegie understood this with complete clarity. He said, talk to someone about themselves, and they'll listen for hours. But here is the deeper truth beneath that observation. Before someone will talk to you about themselves, about the real self, the hurting self, the one they keep hidden, they need to know you can handle it. And the only way to show them you can handle it is to not flinch when they first show you the edge of it. Don't fix the silence. Sit in it. Let it mean something. Because the person who learns to be still in someone else's pain becomes the rarest and most valuable presence in any room. The second lesson arrives in the moment after the silence, because eventually you do speak, and what you say, and more importantly, how you frame it determines whether the conversation deepens or deflects. Most people ask questions that are really just redirections in disguise. Have you tried talking to someone professional? Maybe you just need to get some rest. I went through something similar once. And what helped me was, every one of those sentences moves the focus away from them and toward your agenda, however well-meaning that agenda is. Hey lung ne thut ki. The question that opens a hurting person is never advice dressed as a question. It is a question that makes them feel that their inner world is worth exploring. What does that feel like for you? How long have you been carrying this? What do you need right now? Do you want me to just listen? Or do you want to think through it together? That last question, that specific question, it does something remarkable. It hands them back their own agency. It tells them that this conversation belongs to them, that you are not here to take it somewhere more comfortable, that you will follow their lead, wherever it goes. And for a person who has spent weeks or months feeling out of control, feeling like their pain has no direction, no resolution, no endpoint, being handed back that agency, even in one small conversation, can feel like the first breath after being underwater. Carnegie said, the only way to influence people is to talk in terms of what the other person wants, not what you think they need, what they want. And in this context, what a hurting person wants at the deepest level is to feel that their experience is real, that it matters. and that the person across from them chose to stay fully present with it. Give them that, nothing more, nothing less. Because presence, offered fully, is already transformation. The third lesson is the one that ties everything together, and it is the one most people resist the hardest. You cannot be this person for others until you practice being this person with yourself. This is not self-help language. This is the practical, grounded truth of how human psychology works. The capacity for empathy is not fixed. It grows in direct proportion to your willingness to face your own pain honestly. Every time you turn towards something uncomfortable inside yourself, instead of reaching for distraction, instead of numbing, instead of performing fine, you build the muscle that allows you to turn toward someone else's discomfort without flinching. Eat I bit Dione, the most empathetic people you have ever met are not empathetic because life was easy for them. They are empathetic because they have been in the dark, and they chose to understand it rather than just survive it. They made their pain into knowledge, and then they made that knowledge into presence. Carnegie spent his life studying what separates the people who truly connect from the people who only appear to, and the answer was never intelligence, never charisma, never the perfect words. It was always this, the willingness to be genuinely, uncomfortably, unflinchingly present. Hai lung ye tut ki, respect is earned, honesty is appreciated, trust is gained, and loyalty is returned. Every single one of those things begins in the same place, in the moment when you choose presence over comfort. That choice is available to you in every conversation you will ever have. It was available yesterday. It is available right now. It will be available tomorrow, with the person you have been half listening to for longer than you want to admit. The question is no longer whether you understand what to do. The question is whether you are ready to do the one thing that makes all of it real, and it is the hardest step of all. The hardest step is not learning. It never was. The hardest step is choosing to go first, before anyone else changes, before the relationship improves, before the other person shows up differently. You go first. You choose presence before you feel ready. You choose stillness before it feels natural. You choose to stay when everything in you wants to redirect, to fix, to escape. You go first. And here is everything this journey has shown you, distilled down to what matters most. Silence is not emptiness. It is the most powerful thing you can offer a hurting person. D-A-N-G. You cannot truly listen to someone else until you have learned to sit with yourself. D-O-N-G. The person who failed to show up for you was failing from their own unhealed wound, not from a lack of love. D-N-G presence is not a feeling, it is a discipline, chosen moment by moment, conversation by conversation. D-N-G. The 10-second window exists in every painful exchange, and what you do in it changes everything that follows. D-N-G. You cannot give what you have never received, so become, first, the witness you always needed. D-N-G. That is the whole map. Now here is your challenge. Not tomorrow. Not after you finish this video and go back to your life unchanged. Right now, today. Within the next 24 hours. There is someone in your life who has been carrying something heavy. You already know who it is. Their name came to you somewhere in the middle of this video, and you filed it away, telling yourself you'd think about it later. Stop filing it away. Go to them today. Not with advice, not with solutions, not with the perfect words you've been preparing. Go with nothing but your full attention. Ask them one question. Not "Are you okay?" because that question is a door that closes as soon as it opens. Ask them something real. How are you actually doing? And then, this is the hardest part, stop talking. Let the silence breathe. Let them fill it. Let them go wherever they need to go, and follow them there without steering, without redirecting, without making it easier for yourself. Stay in it. Stay in the discomfort. Stay in the uncertainty. Stay in the messiness of another human being's real experience. Because that is where connection actually lives, not in the polished conversations, not in the moments when everything is fine, in the raw, unresolved, imperfect moments when one person chooses to stay and the other person feels it. Carnegie gave his life to understanding human connection, and after everything, after all the principles, all the observations, all the thousands of conversations studied at him, came down to something almost unbearably simple. People need to feel that they matter, not to the world, not in the abstract, to you, in this moment, right now. You have the power to give that to someone today. Not because you are wise enough, not because you are healed enough, not because you have figured out how to do it perfectly, but because you are willing to try, because you are willing to be uncomfortable, because you care more about the person in front of you than about how you appear to them. That willingness, just that, is enough to begin. And here is the question I want to leave with you, the one I want you to carry out of this video and into your next conversation, your next quiet moment, your next chance to show up for someone who is testing the water. If the people who failed to be present for you were doing so from their own unhealed pain, then who, right now, are you failing for exactly the same reason? That answer belongs to you. If something in this video landed, if one moment, one sentence, one idea cracked something open, and you tell me in the comments which lesson hit you hardest. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Like this video if you believe that the way we listen to each other can change lives, because it can. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper into the ideas that actually move people, not surface wisdom, but the kind that reaches the places most conversations never ever touch. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Not someday, today. They are waiting even if they stopped asking.